again, some profound words from a great philosopher. Moral awareness and mindfulness of morality are key to our lives being lived without doing harm to others. We should practice moral awareness and mindfulness in everything we think, say, and do. Otherwise, our egos can become centered, and everything will revolve around them. And we would simply do what we wish and take what we want. We would be concerned only for the consequences to ourselves, oblivious to the fact that when we harm others, we harm ourselves. Moral awareness and mindfulness of morality are indeed key to our lives. So be it. Amen.
Dawn comes up to welcome our guests and introduce them today. Greg, can you click? Oh, shoot. Forget it, he changed. Welcome to our Zoom attendees today. Steve, you're on just in time. We were going to click on your crazy picture.
Sorry to stifle you there.
You have something to say, Steve?
It gave you a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. We have a guest to welcome to our meeting today. If Judy Malasto could please stand. Judy is a guest of Deb Good. She is with the Valparaiso Community Schools as the Assistant Superintendent. If you could please say hello to Judy.
Hi, Judy. Judy and Deb's name will go in our drawing for the guests at the inviting guests and being a guest at the end of the month. So we do have some student guests with us today. One student guest, and I see Martin is going to introduce her.
We have representation from Victory Christian Academy. We have Head Administrator David Funk with us today. Hello, David. Also, we have student Jaslyn Streeter. So Jaslyn's going to tell you a little bit about herself and what she's been doing and what she plans to do.
Hi, I'm Jaslyn. I attend Victory Christian Academy, and I have been for 5 years. My parents' names are David and Jen. They own the construction business, Jade Construction. They've built a bunch of different restaurants and stuff like that around the community. And my grandpa, Dennis Streeter, who works with them as well, is a doctor around here. I work with both my parents, have been for a couple years with financing, and I do tutoring as well around the community with most of the students in my church. And along with my church, I do worship group. I am going to be graduating in this next year, and once I do, I'm going to study criminology to become a CSI. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. But yeah.
Where are you looking to go to school?
I'm looking to go to school at Anderson and Florida State University.
What are you doing?
Since you're here, because I was going to call you anyway. Wait till Gracie gets back.
I only have a minute.
We have a little gift for you being here today. It's a book about
Samantha quit.
That's our theme for this year.
Samantha.
The girl that works at the front desk.
Huh?
Thank you for joining us. So great to have you today. Okay, Annetta, would you like to come up? Our Sergeant of Arms today, Annetta
She
Jones.
literally just sent
Give
me
her a hand.
2 weeks ago. She called off her night for Saturday.
That
then
may
this
be
morning checked
premature.
on
You
it.
haven't heard what I have to say today. But first, let's start with good news. Who has good news? It wasn't that bad a week, and it was cold, but it wasn't that bad.
Grandma
Okay, good.
so she might not be in all week. Jack's hurt her foot, so she's probably not gonna be coming back until she goes to the doctor and gets clearance. Because they told her she needs to send her home because she might have a broken foot. Well, she has no insurance, so Gracie told her she needs to get into HealthLink or something because she needs to get her foot looked at. You can't keep working on a foot that might be broken. So no telling when she's coming back. Kira, telling me she's gonna come back. Miranda said she's working a little bit more for us. We put her back on the schedule. They're talking to Dimitri because Dimitri is starting to have issues again with not being very nice dog. The washer leaked this morning. I'm not sure why.
The last soccer report.
So I know we're gonna get it. We got literally we've been literally bombarded this morning.
And she also was MVP of the DAC conference. So.
And I gotta have people to help me get the dry, like I can't do it by myself. We're gonna have
the end of the sentence for her high school.
So I told her after that load is done, I'm gonna go back there and do it. I just restarted about a half hour ago. But here's the kicker. They were done. The washer was done because they took the towels out of the washer and put it on the counter. I'm like, what are they doing sitting there? I told them to leave it in there, give it a few minutes and then start it again. Well, she took the towels out. I said, did you have to wring them out? And she's like, no. I'm like, so the washer was done and it was leaking? I don't know.
Is it leaking from the drain?
And she said she only used a little bit of the white stuff. She didn't fill it and there wasn't
Everybody else
that
want
many
to
to
share
go.
their good news. I know
So
lots of good things happened over the weekend.
Even Caitlin thinks that it's an issue.
Somebody
with the
has
quick
their
wash. Like we shouldn't be doing quick wash.
Mute themselves.
I changed
Okay.
the towels.
All right, so I just want
Nope.
to share with
I said,
you
watch it.
Somebody has to
Start
mute
running
themselves.
right
They're on the
away so I can
phone.
see where the leak is
two
coming from.
events.
Unless it has to do with the
And I'm
pressure.
gonna condense them and share them with you. So I had a program, we were doing a program on household technology and the way.
Well, what I'm worried about is that
lives have
gray
changed
hose.
in
If
home
there's not
because of
enough pressure
technology.
to push it,
And
the
I
water
was
up
hosting
the
a
wall,
baby shower for my
and that water
daughter.
comes back down
this
through the
weekend.
hose
So I
up
just
into
wanna
the
tell
washer,
you
then it
about
comes out.
some of the things
Is that
you can
could that
buy
be
for
happening?
babies that have
Okay.
a little technology.
Well, the hose
They're
isn't
leaking.
blank.
Somebody is on their phone on the video.
No.
Somebody is on their phone on the
Let
video.
me tell you, it's all changed. So we all know, we had monitors back in the day when I had a kid. We just listened for them to cry, right? Now we can watch them. Everybody in the world can watch them. It's just wonderful. But now we also have smart bassinets. Have you heard of this? They have a bassinet that sits right next to the bed, has a little mesh screen so you can see your baby. When every time you open your eye, you can see that baby in there. And if the baby begins to cry, the bassinet hears it and begins to gently rock it. So mom doesn't have to get up, dad doesn't have to get up, you just gently rock it, right? And if the quiet is too quiet, it will play some white noise for the baby. And there's not just one rocking motion, there are 3 or 5 different rocking motions, depending upon how much you want to spend on this bassinet. And guess how much that costs? They have one that is so expensive that you can rent it instead of buy it. It costs $1,500 for a bassinet that they age out of when they reach 25 pounds. Now, I know all of you grandparents want to buy this for your kids, right? But you can get a similar model at Target for about $250, so save your money. All right, they also have health monitors now. You can get a sock to put on your baby and it will tell you about their heartbeat, how they're breathing, their oxygen level, whether they're moving, not moving, and all about their sleeping. And if that's not enough information about your child, you can also get a smart changing table. And it'll give you all kinds of changing information. So today, I don't know, I don't even know if mothers have to touch their babies anymore. But anyway, it's a whole new world in the baby front, and I know I'm excited. This is good news for me. I'm excited to have a little one to watch out for in the future. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you, Annetta. I just want Ellen and Jim Sinopoulos to stand up. They just need a little more attention for this awesome, yes, nobody knows. Unless you planned an event for 300 people. You don't know what goes into it. Silva, thank you. She organized the guest speaker that night. He was awesome. Barb helped. Barbara at the check-in table. Who else was helping? Jackie was there. Also, if you attended the veterans program, please raise your hand. Yeah. Wasn't it just amazing? Yeah. I had a 96-year-old friend with me, World War II veteran, and he was speechless. He was so honored. He was just amazed. It was great. So we all were. It was great. Thank you so much. You know, I'm trying to think. Who does polls all the time? Gallup. Thank you. They say, you know, there's 37% of the people in an organization or business that really pull the load. They do the rowing, and these people did that for us that night. Thank you so much for our Rotary. So we're going to announce our Christmas party coming up on December 20th. Diane, can you tell us what our entertainment will be for the Christmas program?
We're very happy to have the Valparaiso High School Jazz Band who are going to come and perform. They have 2 sets of Christmas music for us, and they're going to stay and eat. So they want to really do it.
Okay, and Natalie is going to she's organizing our giving this year.
Yeah, we're going to be helping Opportunity Enterprise this year. So I've made some tags and we'd like to pass them out. So if anybody would like to take one.
Okay, so we'd like you to raise your hand, take a tag. It's an angel tree for adults with disabilities through Opportunity Enterprises. And we need to write down what name you take. Okay, so Natalie's going to call out the name.
Okay, so this is
Anna H. to Mary Jo. Judy. I'm sorry, to Judy. McKenna, who do you have? Pamela L. Terry N goes to Bob. Edwin goes to Greg. G. Jackie takes Ellen S. Martin takes
Janice T.
Janice T.
Sherry T.
Ellen takes Sherry T. Silva takes Beth L. Beth what? J. Tim, I'll have behind you.
We'll have Jason H.
Jim Burns has Jason H. Tim.
Tim will take Lottie F.
Lottie F to Tim. We're making it to the left side of the room. Mary.
Daryl T.
K takes 0.
Rachel R.
Rachel R goes to Sharon. Doug. Bonnie M. Rick in the pink shirt takes. Doug Watkins, who do you have? Okay, I'm finishing up okay. And I think that's it. Next week we'll have more information on the December 20th party. So we're ready for our guest speaker today. He's coming in on Zoom. And Stu Summers will introduce him. Oh yeah, Natalie, when do the gifts have to be back? Unwrapped, everybody.
Unwrapped, right up $50. Let me get the date for that.
Okay, within the next 2 weeks, probably. Do not wrap them. If you cannot shop, you can bring a gift card with your tag and somebody will do the shopping for you. Any other questions later? Thank you.
I first heard about Ed Everett when I read 4 or 5 of his articles in Public Management Magazine, his articles on leadership. And when our president, Deb, said that she wanted to focus on leadership this year, and did I know of anybody in the local government organization who'd be a good speaker, first thing I thought of was Ed. I've never met him, but I call him. He's now retired. He's been a city manager in Redwood City, California, and Belmont, California. He was assistant county manager in Nevada. Before that, he was the fire chief in Palo Alto, California. I said, Ed, I know you're retired and you're in the business now of leadership consulting and training for local governments and local government managers. The Rotary Club would love to have you, but to be honest with you, we don't pay our speakers. So the best we could do is maybe donate a book on leadership to the Children's Library in the Valparaiso. He is so enthused and understanding of the power of leadership and creativity. And he was so impressed that this club is spending a year developing leadership and leadership training that he volunteered his time with you today. I think you'll find it, I've seen his presentation, I think you'll find it very on spot. There's a group called the International City Management Association. I've been a member for 40 years. The highest honor they give is what they call the Award for Career Excellence. They give it to one city manager every year. Ed is one of the recipients of that award. He's got his bachelor's degree in economics from UC Davis. He has a graduate degree from, where did it go? Princeton in urban management. He is a senior fellow with the Davenport Institute of Public Engagement and Civic Leadership at Pepperdine University. And I think you're going to find he's just a great guy. So if we can do the magic of Zoom, Ed is dialing in from his home in Redwood City, California. Ed, welcome to the Valparaiso Rotary Club.
Hi, all. I hope it's coming through. You should be seeing my my PowerPoint. So they gave me strict time limits. You're going to get a little bit of a fire hose here. I want to cover, I wrote 6 articles on leadership. I'm very passionate about it. And what I want to do is sort of give you, I'm going to break it into 4 areas. First is just what is leadership, who are leaders, that sort of thing. Then I want to talk about leaders know themselves. It's one of the biggest attributes of effective leadership that I know. Then I want to talk about fear. Fear is something we don't talk about and is one of the things that prevent leadership. And then I want to talk about leadership sauce. So those are the 4 components that I'll walk you through, and I'll try to do it as fast as I possibly can. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about leadership. Who is it? What is it? Who isn't? Who is? And how do we know that somebody is or isn't? Well, first of all, I want to talk to you about two attributes of leadership. There are the vertical leadership attributes. That's what we mostly know. That's the hierarchy. That's the organization that most of you are in. And by the way, I want to congratulate you for not only putting on a program of leadership, but reaching out to young emerging leaders within your community. And I assume they're either there or listening in, and I want to welcome them. And most people think of leadership in these terms, the vertical leadership attributes. It's the hierarchy, it's the organization, it's the power, control, and title. And those are certainly valid aspects of leadership. However, the horizontal leadership attributes are more powerful and more broadly used by effective leaders. That's empowerment, collaboration, vision, having a purpose, pushing strong values, influencing and persuading others. Those are the other issues of leadership that are important to us. Now, one of the things that most people get badly confused with, especially emerging leaders, the boss is not always the leader. He is merely, or she is merely, your boss. Titles don't make leaders. They just make titles. Authority does not convey leadership. Authority conveys authority. And true leaders don't need to have a title. Now, it is much easier to be a leader and have a title and authority. Let me give you some examples, and I've written them on the bottom, of people who didn't have authority and didn't have title, but major leaders. Well, we all know Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, he led the Indian continent away from Great Britain, then a huge power, without any leadership titles or whatever. Steve Jobs, when he started, he didn't have any leadership titles or anything. Malala Yusfat, I hope you remember her. She was the Pakistani lady who got shot, a young woman, and has been a leader of women's education. So you don't need to have titles to be a leader, and a leader doesn't make you, a title doesn't make you a leader. For a lot of people, the leadership myths are believed and keep them from being leaders. So for me, it's really important when I'm counseling people to say, let's make sure you don't have any of these myths. Leaders are the smartest person in the room. Not at all. People are born leaders. No, people develop. People with titles or bosses are leaders. Not at all. They're the most creative people in the room. Not even a little bit. Leaders are the strongest. They talk the most. None of those are true. Leaders don't make mistakes. Absolutely. If you read anything about effective leaders, they have made lots of mistakes. They have failed and they've learned from them. Leaders know the best answers. No, good leaders know that the best answer resides in their group. Leaders always use data to make decisions. That's not true. They know they must lead with their heads, not their hearts. Absolutely wrong. And leaders don't have weaknesses or fear. That's absolutely untrue. What are the traits that prevent leadership? Because this is also reasonably important. Perfectionists do not make great leaders. Micromanagers and control freaks do not make leaders. They make probably efficient managers, but not good leaders. Risk aversion. It affects too many people. It prevents people from doing what they ought to do, and it causes ineffective leadership. And last but not least, it's the lack of confidence or fearfulness. Anytime you're fearful, that will manipulate you. And if you're not aware of it, it'll cause you to be a non-leader. So let's go to the second issue, which is really about, well, leaders know themselves. Now, this is something that I've spent a lot of time looking at. And when I coach people, I tell them, look, you have to know yourself. You cannot be a good leader unless you know yourself inside and out. What do I mean by that? Well, you can get to know yourself by several ways. Direct feedback is one way. Observation, you observe other very effective leaders. It's a good way to learn about it. By the way, direct feedback, it's great, but don't trust it. Most people won't tell you what they honestly believe, and they won't tell you what your foibles and failures are because they don't want to lose you. Counseling and therapy. Now, a lot of people, when I tell this to groups of young city managers or people, they all laugh. And I say, no, I don't expect you to get into counseling and therapy because you're sick, because you're mentally ill, because you're some psychopath. The more you learn about yourself, what your triggers are, what manipulates you, the better leader you will be. And last but not least, the assessment centers. There are tons of assessment centers, and I'll talk about those a little bit. But along with those 4 ways of getting to know yourself, it takes reflection and insight, and both of those are based on how truthful you are about yourself. So leaders know themselves, and I've said, I'm going to focus in on just 2 assessments that I have all people, anyone that I'm coaching, I use. What's your communication style is one, and it talks just about that. I'll talk about it a little more. And the second one is the Enneagram. It's a personality profile. So those are 2. I've taken probably 15 assessments from Myers-Browns to Briggs and I don't find them very good. I don't find them useful, I guess I should say. These 2 I found incredibly useful. There's one that's called, what's your communication style? By the way, there are 4 communication styles. We all have a preferred style that we use too much. I'm direct and I'm spirited and I overuse it. And if I'm direct and I'm trying to talk to a considerate, I'm going to have a difficult time doing that. And because I'm spirited, I have a tough time talking to and influencing a systematic. However, if I understand those differences, I'm much better off. So the instrument merely tells you what is your communication style, how strong are you in that, how often do you use that? And then it tells you what are your weaknesses in some of the other communication styles. And by doing this, you begin to understand that everybody has a different communication style. And you must use their style if you're going to be effective in communicating with them. And all all effective leaders are effective communicators. So that's the first one. The second one I want to talk about is the Enneagram. It's been studied worldwide. It's scientifically proven by gender, by ethnicity, by age, by generation. There are 9 personality types in the world. We're born into a dominant personality style. We are born into it. Sure, it can be affected by how we're brought up. No style is better and no style is worse. So it's not a pass-fail test. All personality styles, regardless of which one, have strengths, and all personality styles have weaknesses. And you have to know what those strengths and weaknesses are, especially you. Without knowing your assets and without knowing your dark side, you will never, ever be able to be an effective leader. So those are the 2 assessments that I recommend. I have this rule. It's called the 50-30-20. It's my rule. Actually, I've sort of seen it. I've used it on myself. This is my observation. If we as the whole group decided there were 20 attributes to leadership, and I think we could easily agree on that, here's what I say. Great leaders are really great at 50% of their attributes. And great leaders are really good at 30% of their attributes. And great leaders suck at about 20% of them. They're not good at them. They just don't know how to do those things. And so, well, then how are they great leaders? Well, great leaders know their weaknesses. They know those 20%, and they manage around their weaknesses. That's what leaders do. They don't try to get great at 20 attributes because none of us can. They get help from others when they know they don't have their skills. They redefine the problem or a solution so that they're better able to implement it. They're creative in managing around their weaknesses. So face your failings and weaknesses. No one's perfect. No one has all the skills and traits, and no one can change their personality. So get over yourself, admit your failings and weaknesses, manage around them. That's what great leaders do. Look, all of us suck at some things. Bottom line, we are not good at some things. That's just a reality. It's not a barrier, and don't allow it to be. That's up to you if that's what you're going to do. Let's talk about fears in leadership. It's the duality of leadership. Everybody has fears. Fears kill leadership. Well, wow. If that's true, then how do we have leaders? First, let's talk about, lots been written about leadership. We don't talk about fears, excuse me. We don't talk about fears. Nobody has a program about fears, but fears are the biggest drivers of what we do or don't do. So we all know the first one, the only thing to fear is fear itself. Without fear, there can't be courage. I love Joseph Campbell's. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasures you seek. Now, we all have a cave we fear to enter. It may be public speaking. It may be being a leader. But that very cave that we're afraid to enter has the treasure that we really seek. Ralph Waldo Emerson, certainly not a leadership guru, but says fear defeats more people than any one thing in the world. Fear defeats more people than any one thing in the world. And then I love this by a consultant. Fear is an idea crippling, experiencing crushing, success stalling inhibitor, inflicted only by one person, yourself. And then Nelson Mandela, I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the triumph over it. So everybody has fears. If you don't think you have a fear, then you have even more problems. We all have fears, and our fears will control us unless we acknowledge it. So directing at leaders, all leaders have fears. They have to figure this out. So leaders are fearful, just like the rest of us. Fear kills leadership. So what are we talking about? Well, we all have fears. And by the way, most fears are not rational. I've been a rock climber most of my life. So I've been up 300 feet hanging by a rope on a rock face here in California. And yes, I'm slightly scared, I guess. I'm nervous, but I'm paying attention. But I can't go on a roller coaster. I'm way too fearful. Now, that doesn't make logical sense when I tell people. And I just say, well, that's me. However, fears ignored will paralyze you. And you've probably all experienced that, a fear. A fear that ignores gets bigger. So it not only becomes a fear, it becomes a bigger stopper. Leaders lead even though they have fears. Now, how do they do that if they have fears? Well, leaders just have the courage to face their fears. So let's talk about this. Acknowledging your fears. The more you can publicly acknowledge, not to yourself, but publicly acknowledge your fears, the smaller they become, the more manageable they become, but they don't go away. Your fears don't go away. But the question is, how do you manage them as a leader? And as young leaders, emerging leaders that are out there in the audience, usually the fears are even more powerful because they're new to you. And so what do we talk about? We talk about courage. Courage is your ability to face fears. It's not being strong. It's not being anything else. It's your ability to face your own fears. Now, if you face your fears, they become manageable. I said they don't go away. Well, how do you face your fears? You ask 3 questions. Well, what's the worst case that could happen? How likely is that to happen? And can I live with that? However, you can't ask these by yourself because the very issue you're asking about is the one you're fearful about. So you need to get a friend who is a good friend who will be honest with you, who will say, Bill, Jane, that is not the worst case. At the worst case, it'll look like this. And Mary, you said that's a 60% chance that'll happen. No, really, there's about a 10% chance that'll happen. And then you have to ask the final question, can I live with that? That's how you face your fears. You ask yourself those questions. You get input from others, and then you try to move on. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. Now, remember, courage is merely facing your fears. So courageous people live a big life, a fulfilling life. Non-courageous people live very small little lives because they can't face their fears, and it prevents them from doing so many things. So leadership, if we look at it, there's the old and the new. The old leadership, the old leader, he or she is solving problems. The new leader understands that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to facilitate problem solving by involving other people because I'm not the smartest person in the room. The old leader relies on him or herself. The new leader relies on staff, wisdom of the crowd, relationships. The old leader uses data. The new leader, he or she will share data. The old leader, because of the vertical, will tell and recommend. The new leader asks questions and learns, will eventually tell if that has to happen. The old leader controls. The new leader collaborates. The old leader has fears. The new leader has fears but collaborates. So that's what we know about some of the major points of leadership. Now, what I tell all emerging leaders and even older folks that are trying to sort of improve their leadership, it's all about leadership sauce. So let me give you one example about what I mean by leadership sauce. We've all had a great meal. We've gone to somewhere and have a great meal, and it's really good ingredients, fresh ingredients, well prepared. And we all know what that is. But a memorable meal, a really remarkable meal, a meal that we can almost taste when we think about it, is great ingredients, well prepared, with an unbelievable sauce that just makes the meal. That's the same with leadership. All leaders must develop their own leadership sauce. You can do a lot of things that you read about or mimic from other people, but you must develop your own leadership sauce. Well, how do you do that? Well, by trial and error. You make mistakes, leaders, especially you young leaders. You screw up. You have to do that. If you don't screw up, you can't be a leader. You have failures. If you haven't had a failure yet, you're not on the road to leadership. You learn from those things. Obviously, you learn from your successes as well. No question about it. But we learn way more from our failures, our mistakes, and our screw-ups. And you develop leadership by doing, not by reading. So what is this leadership sauce? Well, everyone can have their own, but this is my 6 components of leadership sauce, and I'll go through them quite quickly. It's passion. Leaders have passion. And I'll go through them real quickly first. North Star and a set of values, integrity, political astuteness, courage, and trust. Let's go back. Everybody, if you want to be a leader, you have to have passion. Now, don't get passion mixed up with someone who's loud or a lot of activity. Passion can be quiet and deep. Passion is something that drives you. You can't not do this. You must change this organization. You must move this community this way. It's just in you. You have to do it. Unfortunately, too many people are either afraid of their passion that I've found, or they have no idea what their passion is. North Star. Every leader knows their North Star. They have a set of values, and they do not violate those values. Every leader has integrity. Now, integrity is interesting. Integrity is something that you have from birth, quite frankly. Nobody can take integrity away from you. However, I see over and over again, people give away their integrity. No one can take it from you, but people give it away. And if you give it away, it's almost possible to bring it back. And if you've lost your integrity, you've lost any ability to be a leader. Political astuteness has nothing to do with politics, has everything to do with understanding the environment in which you work, the constraints that are there in that particular situation, and how you modify your leadership as a way to move people and a group from position A to B. And you may not get all the way to B. You may get to A and A.1, and then A.2, and then A.3. Courage. Now, we've talked about that, so I won't go into it. Trust is as important, but so different than integrity. Whereas integrity is yours, and only you can give it away. Trust is something that is not yours. It comes from other people. Other people give you trust if you so deserve it. You have to earn trust. And once again, if you violate trust, you probably can't get it back. So let's look at leadership. And you have to have those 6 pieces. You have to figure out how they become your leadership sauce. But especially for you young leaders, leadership is fun. It's exciting. It's absolutely challenging. And for me, it's been so fulfilling. Being a leader tells me that I can do something that will make other people better, that'll make my organization better. It requires you to have the courage to face your fears, and courage to do almost the impossible. I've always thought managing a city is right on the edge of almost impossible, because you're working with a bunch of elected officials and a very diverse group. But it is not impossible, it's just almost impossible. So leadership allows you to make your community or your organization or your neighborhood or your government a better place to live. Now, for me, there's nothing better than that. It might, in fact, be your legacy. Leadership is what it takes. Leadership is what we have painfully little of. So what might be holding you back? Because something may be holding you back. It probably is fear. And that's okay. We all have them. Just acknowledge them. It could be a lack of courage, anxiety, lack of confidence. I don't know how. Of course, you don't know how. Just keep trying. You will learn how. Never thought about it. I hope you do. And the last thing I want to say is, especially to those younger folks, I'm available by the internet. I don't charge anymore. I'm willing to coach anyone who wants to become a leader. Our society is in such desperate need of leaders. We do not have leadership at the national level. We don't always have a lot of leadership at the state level. At the local level, leadership can be terribly important. And so anyone who wants to become a leader, I'd love to help you. So I want to thank you for your time. You may have questions, you may have comments, reactions, disagreements, agreements, and or what's this dude smoking? So with that, I'll turn it over and we'll try to get through this and figure out what some of your questions are.
Okay, Ed, we were focusing on local governance today. We have someone in the crowd who's going to be running for a local office, other people who have run local offices. Can you give us some advice on, Stu and I talked about the paradoxes of, maybe what's right and what's popular for somebody running for office, for instance. Does that question make sense?
Well, for local government, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is my comment about local government. Risk aversion is killing local government. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure my video's up, but that's okay.
Do you want a video up or do you want?
No, that's okay. I'm good. But what is killing local government is risk aversion. I find way too many city managers way too many department heads, risk averse. They're afraid of being fired. They're afraid of feedback or criticism from the community. The elected officials, the need to get reelected seems to overwhelm the need to do almost anything else. So I'm kind of surprised now that I've been consulting. And what I tell people is it's an endemic in local government that I think we have to figure out how to get rid of.
Okay, any questions from her? Mary Jo?
If he could give an example of when someone gives away their integrity.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, something about integrity.
Example of giving away or losing your integrity.
Yeah. Well, I think you lose your integrity as soon as you lie. Quite frankly, and I don't know, maybe this doesn't go down well where you are. The election wasn't stolen. Now, people who say that lose their integrity. A council person who says, here's what I believe, and then gets elected and does something else, they've lost their integrity. Integrity is something where I'm a leader of an organization and I say, these are my values. And then I promptly violate those values. I think I've lost my integrity because what I'm saying is either not true or my actions are different from what I've said. And in any of those cases, smart people say that person can't be trusted. And once you've lost that integrity, see, you give it away. No one can take it from you. People can threaten you and you can fold. But if you believe something, you have to stand up. You can't be afraid of what another politician will say or a community member will say. You must say what is true for you.
Okay, how would you handle some untruths that the other candidate might say about you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last.
How would you handle untruths that another candidate may speak in public about you if you're running for office?
Yeah, unfortunately, what we seem to do in the elected arena now is to make outrageous statements. I mean, truth does not seem to have any veracity anymore. I guess that's a double entendre. I mean, all you can do is say, this is what is so, and say it without blame or judgment. That's one guideline I have. Say what is so without blame or judgment. Don't reattack the person. Say what is true, and then just stay with your truth. I think people actually know when people are lying, but they sort of kid themselves when they want to vote for that person anyway. So, all you have is your truth. You don't have anything more than that and your character.
Okay, we have a question from Zoom. What's the biggest leadership challenge you personally faced during your career and how did you navigate through it?
Well, I had 7 council members. 2 of them wanted to fire me. They were running on an election of getting a third person on, which they thought would fire me. They didn't read takes 5 out of 7 to fire me. And they were pushing me on several important issues. And I just said to myself, well, I'm passionate about these. So I pushed forward with those. And I said, I'll either get fired for the right reason, but I won't hold on to my job for the wrong one. And I won't go into those. Look, we get nailed all the time by vicious rumors. I had one ex-council person that wrote a letter to 100 other elected officials. She hated me. And she said I was having an affair with this person. And she sent it to every council member in my county and we had 20 cities. And also to the civil grand jury. And so I just stood up and I said, it's a shame. I knew who it was, even though it wasn't signed. And I said, it's a shame that this person is having to do that. I don't know what her issue is. So sometimes you have to just have the courage to stand up, say what is so without blame or judgment, and hold on to your integrity.
Any other questions?
You'll have to repeat the question.
I wanted to come up here in case you couldn't hear me, but can you be risk averse and simply look for good risk reward scenarios, or is just being risk averse to you mean taking no risk? Does that
Great question. Absolutely great question. Because so I'm a firm believer that when you're trying something new, beta test it. I spent 5 years with a startup company after I retired, and in the startup company, we beta tested everything. So if you have a great program or something, try a small beta test in a small area within your organization, and then find out because no idea is great. You will learn the mistakes of that idea. You will improve it. You'll test it again. You'll improve it. Then you'll implement it. So it's not about taking outrageously stupid risk. It's about taking risks, but being very, very strategic about those risks. Knowing that the first time you come up with a program, it may not be the best thing. Now, there are a few times when you take the whole enchilada, and that is when somebody is saying something that is untrue, and you merely have to go in and face it full on. Then you can't sort of nibble at it. You have to call it for what it is, call out the person, and then deal with the consequences. But it's a great question. You don't take stupid big risks. That's not being politically astute.
Thank you very much, Ed. As Stu said, we appreciate you coming. We're paying you with a book to the Children's Library, and
That's great.
wish you well. Thank you so much, and it's time to close.
Thank you.
Is there anything else for the good of the club before we close? Announcements, Natalie.
I won't be here the next 2 weeks, so if anybody wants to bring the gifts, I will collect them.
Bring your gifts in the next 2 weeks. Meeting right afterwards, across the hallway with the Community Development Committee, right? Right. Sarah.
Can we get a copy of this PowerPoint?
Ed, are you still there?
I think we may have lost it.
We'll email him. We'll get that. Oh, we have the PowerPoint. Okay, so Sarah Seabright. We'll get it. All righty, let's stand and close it before we pledge. Next week, we have our special Thanksgiving speaker on gratitude. Her name is Stephanie Jones, and Bill Higbee will be hosting her. So make sure to be here for an uplifting message. Gratitude is always uplifting. Okay, of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And is it fun?